I'm Dario Bard with Global Post Confederation. Today we're continuing our series of conversations with G. Chandrasekhar, Senior Editor at the Hindu Business Line. The focus of our talk this time around is the recent monsoon forecast and how it bodes for the upcoming Kharif crop. Chandra, as always, it's good to see you again.
My pleasure.
Let's dive right in. Last month, the Indian Meteorological Department forecast a normal southwest monsoon for this year. It is predicting a rainfall from June to September will amount to 98% of the long-term average. Could you discuss the implications of this for India's pulse markets?
Yes, the IMD, India Meteorological Department, has forecasted normal southwest monsoon for 2021. This is actually in continuation of the normal monsoon that India has had in 2019 and 2020. Yeah. The monsoon usually sets over the southern tip of India on June 1st. And this year also, it is going to actually keep up the date. And on 1st June, we expect that it will break over the southern coast of India, which is in the state of Kerala. Now, the LPA is long period average. The long period average rainfall for India is 880 millimeters or 88 centimeters. And this year, the precipitation is expected to be 98% of that long period average of 880 millimeters. But when you have a closer look at the prediction, at the forecast, you will know that, and I believe also, that the rainfall is likely to be a little less munificent this year than it was last year. And why am I saying this? For two reasons. One, we have had the benefit of La Nina last year, and therefore the final quantum of rainfall was actually 101%, okay, of the long period average. We don't have the benefit of La Nina in 2021 this year. This is one. Second, also last year, the IMD had predicted or had said that there was a 70% probability that the country will have slightly above normal rainfall. And we did have above normal rainfall. But this year, that probability of above normal rainfall is down to 60% from 70% of last year. Therefore, while rainfall will be normal, I'm sure there'll be enough precipitation, the kind of munificence, the kind of massive, very large kind of a quantum of rainfall is not expected this year. It will certainly be satisfactory. This is number one. The second point I want to make is the temporal and spatial distribution of rainfall. That is what is critical for the agriculture crop prospects. And we still do not have this temporal and spatial distribution forecast. And what do I mean by that? When I say temporal, June, July, August, September, in each one of these months, what will be the quantum of rainfall? And when I say spatial, I'm talking about distribution across India, southern India, central India, eastern, western, and northern India. The IMD will come out with this forecast of spatial and temporal distribution probably in the next 15 days or so. And that will be quite interesting to watch. But by itself, in my view, this normal monsoon forecast is very positive for Indian agriculture in general, and certainly good for pulses. Now, given the behavior of pulses prices over the last 2 months or so, 3 months, I would think growers will be rather encouraged to plant more areas and improve their agronomic practices. That's going to be the impact on the pulses.
So increased seeding is what you're expecting.
Yes.
Now, one thing, just to follow up, you mentioned the spatial distribution. I know Madhya Pradesh is the big pulse growing state for the Kharif. What other states should we be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, no, because there are two seasons, the Kharif season and the Rabi season. For the Kharif season, the key states would be Maharashtra, Karnataka. Maharashtra is in the western part, Karnataka is in the southern part, and of course, partly Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan also, and Andhra Pradesh. So the focus should be on western and southern parts of India for the Kharif season. But for the Rabi season, sowing for planting, seeding for which will start by November, December, Madhya Pradesh is as a key state. Then you have Rajasthan also in northwest India, and of course Maharashtra, the central parts of Maharashtra. Therefore, this time for the Kharif season, I think western and southern states would be key. That's what we need to watch. Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and partly, of course, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Yep.
Great. Now, the government of India has set a post-production target for 2021-22, right? They're looking at 25 million metric tons. That's the target.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how realistic this figure is and what it would mean for the global pulse trade. Yeah.
Yes, for the whole year, that is 2021-22, the production target is 25 million tons. But remember, we have two seasons, the Kharif season and the Rabi season. And we are now getting into the Kharif season. The specific target for the Kharif season is 9.8 million tons.
Okay.
And for the Rabi season, it is 15.2 million tons. That's what makes it 25 million tons. But for the Kharif season, the production target is, as I said, 9.8 million tons, and the planting will start now, probably early to mid-June. Tuar arhar or pigeon pea is one major crop. Then you have black mud pea or urad, which is another major crop in the Kharif season. And the third one is moong. Moong is a third big crop in the Kharif season. These are the principal crops in the Kharif season. Unfortunately, as of now, pulse-wise breakup, the target is not available as of now. But I'm sure we should get that target towards the end of this month, or maybe early June, and maybe we'll have another round of talk on that specific target for each one of these pulses: pigeon pea, black mud pea, etc., etc. And therefore, but when we look at Kharif pulse production in the last 2 or 3 years, the actual production has seldom reached anywhere near the production target. Okay? Therefore, it has fallen far below the production target. If you remember, even in last year, 2020 Kharif season, I had forecast a crop size of 8.5 million tons as early as August last year, if you remember. But the government said in September it is 9.3 million tons. But subsequently in February, of course, obviously they revised down their estimate. But these things happen because in such a large country, and then with the kind of data collection, data dissemination, it is going to be difficult. Therefore, what I want to mention is there is nothing to suggest as of now that in 2021 something dramatic is going to happen in pulses production. There's nothing to suggest. I think it'll the same. It'll be more of the same that we have seen in the last 2 or 3 years. The only positive factor, in my view, is prices. Prices are high, above the minimum support price. That should encourage higher seeded acreage for pulses. But also, we must remember, it's not just pulses. Oilseed prices are up. Soybean prices are double that of the minimum support price. Peanut prices are up. Cotton prices are up. Corn prices are up. And therefore, across the agriculture spectrum, most of the agri-commodity prices are up. And pulses prices are also up. Therefore, the farmer will obviously take a call what to plant based on his own expectation of where pulses prices would be 4 or 5 months from now. So it's certainly too early to talk about any production number or prospective production of pulses. But yet I think Indian Kharif pulse production has the potential, mark my word, has the potential to reach close to 9 million tons in this Kharif season, vis-a-vis 8.3 million tons of last year. Therefore there will be an increase. After all, there will be a price elasticity of supplies. Supplies will increase when prices go up. That's the point. And for the world prices trade, as you asked, I think given the current situation of high prices and demand kicking in from July, August onwards to meet the festival season, there is an opportunity for the world pulses trade to service the Indian market in the months ahead. That's my belief. Because high prices continue to be a matter of concern for the policymakers. And I see the possibility of the import window, I think, opening a little wider, okay, with a possible duty reduction in one or two pulses, and possibly slightly larger quota in certain other pulses. But I'm hopeful, and I'm hopeful. Okay, put it that way. All right.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because the Hindu Business Line published an article of yours, created quite a buzz in the industry, reporting that Indian traders were booking Canadian and US lentils in advance, right? Anticipating that India would do as exactly you just said, reduce its tariff on lentil imports. Can you provide us an update on that and give us your sense of when that might happen?
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you, I think I broke that news, as you know.
Yes.
And if you permit me a little bit of immodesty, I want to claim that no one else in this trade could have brought this to light, okay? Anyway, but I consciously refrained from mentioning the names of trading houses. It was a very conscious decision. I know those names, but I thought it was not fair to mention, okay? Now, primarily traders in India are drawing inspiration from what happened exactly this time last year. What happened this time last year after the lockdown, prices started to go up because of disruption to supply chain, the domestic supply chain. And the pulses prices started to move up. Lentil prices went up above the minimum support price. Reserve Bank of India expressed concern, and promptly the Government of India, Ministry of Finance, reduced customs duty. I think the same situation is playing out in 2021 also. It's a repeat of 2020. But last year, only lentil prices were above MSP. This year, across the board, the price of all pulses are high, much higher than they were this time last year. Whether it's chickpea, PGNP, and other pulses, they're all very, very high, a little uncomfortably high, put it that way. And therefore, the Reserve Bank has once again, this year also, in fact, 4 days ago, actually flagged food inflation as a concern. Why is inflation a concern? Crude oil is up. Brent crude is $67, $68. Okay, and we are very large. We are the world's third largest consumers of crude oil, and our import dependence is 80%. Second, vegetable oil, edible oil. We are probably the single largest import market for edible oil, importing something like 13 to 14 million tons. That cost us $10 billion. Therefore, vegetable oil prices are up. Palm oil is at record levels. Pulses prices have gone up. But therefore, an environment for much higher food inflation is actually developing within the country. And therefore, the commodity market sentiment is quite bullish. And therefore, I believe there is a strong possibility. But you wanted me to predict when the lentil tariff would be reduced, right? I think it will be very difficult to time the government announcement of duty reduction. I think if the lentil prices in the domestic market continue to remain firm, my sense is the decision will probably be made sometime in June after looking at the onset of the monsoon. That is the most logical and rational thing to do. And that will not lead to, usually the Government of India's reaction is knee-jerk. But I would advise and I would think that they must wait for the onset of monsoon, and possibly in the first half of June they must announce the duty reduction, and that in my view will make sense. Yeah, thank you.
Now, in the course of this conversation, food inflation has come up several times. Could you talk about the impact that's having on demand?
Yeah, the situation certainly is alarming in India, the pandemic or the COVID-19 situation. But we don't have a national lockdown. Remember that. But we have regional lockdowns and a lot of restrictions, of course, in various different regions. But at the same time, there are no restrictions on agriculture activities and food processing and food distribution activities, unlike it was last year. Last year, everything was closed. The whole nation was shut for several weeks to start with. Then they slowly started to open up for agriculture activities and food processing, etc. But this time, food processing is continuing unhindered. So I don't expect any major supply disruption in the Indian market as of now. But there could be demand destruction. Some amount of demand destruction, not a major demand destruction that we experienced last year. Some amount of demand destruction because there is again we find reverse migration. Wage earners, daily workers, daily wage earners in the city are all going back to their villages. We call this reverse migration that has started, and the small and medium enterprises are all still suffering. Therefore, there will be some amount of demand destruction, but certainly not on a scale that we faced last year. Second, last year the government of India had massive quantities of buffer stock of chickpea, and they could distribute the chickpea free of cost to very, very vulnerable people. But this year, the stock with the government of India is rather limited. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit, because they've announced a distribution of free grains, right, to 800 million people in May and June. Yeah. Pulses are not included this time around because of low inventories, right? What's happening with public procurement, and does this signal an import need?
The point is we have had really large harvests of both rice and wheat in the last 3 years. Okay, number one. India is the world's second largest producer of both rice and wheat. And there is a massive government procurement program. And therefore the government of India, through the Food Corporation of India, has accumulated very large quantities of both rice and wheat, much beyond what the economy actually needs. But primarily because farmers have come and sold to the government of India at the minimum support price, and we have very, very large stocks. Therefore, the two cereals, rice and wheat, are being distributed free of cost to about 800 million people. But that will be only for 2 months. That will be May and June. That will help reduce inventory of rice and wheat with the government to some extent. It will also, well, let me say, provide certain political mileage for the government of free distribution of grains. But we do not have this year adequate public stocks of pulses, simply because pulses prices are above the minimum support price. Therefore, farmers are selling it in the open market. And when farmers continue to sell it in the open market, why should any public agency intervene in the market and start buying more and more? And therefore, the stocks with the public agency are also quite limited. And therefore, pulses are out of this free distribution as of now.
Okay. Just a few more questions. Chandra, China is becoming a leading destination for pulse shipments from origins that were once major suppliers of pulses to India, right? Do you foresee competition between China and India shaping up?
Well, Dario, actually, I've been tracking and I continue to track the Chinese economy, particularly Chinese foreign trade, import and export trade across commodities, whether it's energy products or industrial metals or precious metals or agriculture commodities. I track all of that, and I know what's happening. China uh, tactically has been building a large inventory of several essential supplies. They built state reserves. They call it state reserve, strategic reserve of cotton and oil seeds and a whole lot of other commodities. So I think China is unlikely, in my view, to rival India in terms of import volumes anytime soon. Yes, China is beginning to import, yes, but I don't think they'll be able to reach India's import volume, or they may not need to reach India's import volumes anytime soon. This is one. But second, for the origins, the producing and exporting countries, they have to constantly look for new markets because now they have realized the risk of depending on a single market like India, and therefore they are looking at new markets. They are looking at new applications, new uses for pulses, and because the new markets will have to absorb the surplus production of the major exporting country, and therefore China is now drawing attention of everybody because China has started to import, but it's going to take long time for China to actually ramp up its imports of pulses to any meaningful level that can actually impact global demand supply fundamentals. Okay? They will continue to import, they'll continue to experiment, they will extract pea protein, fractionation, all that will happen. But in my view, uh, I don't think anytime soon China's import is going to have any major impact on the global demand for pulses and global prices. China will be watched. China will be noticed. There is no doubt at all. But they will not be the mover and shaker of the world pulses market, like they are the mover and shaker of the world cotton market, for example, soybean market, for example, or even the metals market, for example. So in pulses, I think they still have some way to go. Yeah. And let's see, what happens to Chinese imports over the next 2 or 3 years. Let's see how their import volumes pan out, and that'll give us a good trend to project the future. Yeah.
Great. Last thing I wanted to ask you about, Chandra, was the elections in India. We've been seeing that the ruling party has suffered some setbacks, right? Could you fill us in on the results and what policy implications this could have?
Dario, it's like this. There is a ruling party at the central government level. It's called the federal government. And then many states are ruled by regional parties. Now, elections were held in 4 states ruled by regional parties. Okay? But the party at the center wanted also to kind of capture the state elections and win the elections at the state level. But that has not happened, unfortunately, except in one state, because people decided something different. People have voted back the regional parties to power, and not the central government to power, except in one state, which is fine. Therefore, we need to respect the mandate of the electorate and of the people. This, yes, I must admit, it's some kind of a setback for the party that is ruling India at the center, in the central government, because they had ambitions to also fan out into various states, but that is not to be for the time being. And we must also remember there is tremendous uh, uh, pent up anger amongst people, because because of this COVID crisis, there's a huge amount of suffering of millions of people. I think that that anger also possibly got reflected in the election results. I think in my view, the election results will force the government of India, the central government, to ensure more and more people-oriented policies with focus on health, food security, nutrition security, education, job creation, and all that. I think the government will start rethinking its a political strategy and will probably now revamp itself, review and renew itself to delivering various social benefits to the people. It's only with that that kind of delivery of social benefits will this party be able to capture the hearts of the voters across India.
Thanks so much, Chandra. We've definitely covered a lot of ground today, so I much appreciate your insights. Are always very valuable. And we'll be checking in with you next month. We've got a lot to talk about, right? The monsoon will be hitting India's shores. We'll have the Kharif seeding started, and we'll see what's going on with tariffs. Yeah. Until then,
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dario. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And good luck. God bless you all. Take care. We'll be in touch.
Great. And you too, Chandra. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.